To talk to you a little bit about the good things and the bad things that happen to us as the developers. I want to talk to things that gives us nightmares and things that, well, makes us happy, right? So, a couple of words about me. My name is Rustam. I come from Norway. I am working as in a Norwegian consultancy company called Kompetos, and this is what normally I do. In addition to that, I travel to different conferences and do talks because I think it's fun. I like it, and I really enjoy it. It's my third year here. It's super happy to be back every year. And also I do I'm quite much involved in the Norwegian Java user group called JavaBen, and also I am leading one of the conferences, Java conferences out there, one of the biggest ones probably, called Java Zone. Yeah, and also a couple of, it's almost a year ago, it's a month ago, I've been awarded the title of Java Champion, which I'm really happy about. All right, so, right, I think we should get started. That was a little bit about me, and what I want to talk to you about today is projects that we work at. I usually do this kind of fun raise of hand things. How many of you worked on like really bad, horrible projects? Cool, okay, good. How many of you are working right now? Okay, I'm not going to ask that. But yeah, cool. The thing is that I have been last few, a couple of years, I think. I've been working a lot with the customers that invite me to look at their projects and to look at their systems and to see if, usually it's like, it could be, for example, a company that wants to check the quality of their software. They hired another company to do some stuff, and they got it delivered, and maybe it worked for a couple of years, maybe even 10 years or so, and they're not sure what state it is in right now, and what should be done, and what kind of things should be done. So they ask me to come and do some kind of software review. Also, it happens that some companies are thinking or planning to acquire another company, and they kind of, again, ask me to do like, okay, can you have a look at this stuff and see how much we should pay for that? So this is kind of the things that I've been doing for a couple of years now. And, well, after some time looking at big systems, and by big systems I mean quite a bit of lines of code. It's like 350 and more, maybe even 450,000 lines of code. That's quite a big, serious systems, and mostly Java systems. And it's also the thing is that it's not. I've been looking at the systems that somebody else made. I was a part of making those kind of systems as well, as a technical project manager, as a delivery manager, and those kind of things in a big project. So what happened was that like at some point I was like, okay, look, I know that's the good projects here, and I know that there are like really bad stuff that happened there, like horrible things. There'll be dragons and stuff, right? And then you're like, okay, what is this thing, and what is the kind of main things? Can I get something from there? Can I do something about it? Can I advise people to do some kind of stuff? And it also a little bit of how I do software review when I go to somebody and I look at that stuff. So call it developer's paradise, right? The opposite of nightmare. And then I kind of try to put the main parts of it and put it together and see how things are actually, what actually makes it a paradise, right? And well, the kind of main things that I figured out, there was okay, you have something to do with the code, and there are like some other things under it, like third-party libraries, and all those kind of things, architecture, all those kind of things. Then you have some tooling that will help you to make things better, and then you have, well, obviously documentation, right? So it's kind of a cool thing, and it's usually is really nice, and some of those things are quite obvious, and but still they're obvious, right? And then everybody would think like, well, everybody does that, and that's obvious things are obvious, right? No, they don't. We are doing stuff in a different ways, and it's sometimes our fault. Sometimes we're not allowed to do that by people managing the projects, and sometimes there are some other reasons for that. So we'll look into that. To do that, I had like this acute procrastination need. So, you know, I ended up drawing a couple of little helpers to help me with that presentation. Well, obviously bad thing, right? It's the state-of-the-art drawings. I mean, no laughing here. And this one. And this is obviously a good thing, right? I actually even made a T-shirt with the unicorn, and then when I came with a picture, and I was like, "Can you print a T-shirt like that?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure. Oh, it's so cute. Did your daughter draw that?" I was like, "Yep, that was right, for sure." So before we do that, before we do talk about today's stuff, I want to go back a little bit back. I mean, I started working in probably like kind of a decade later. But before that, before we had like kind of weird tools, we had weird things, and everything was not as fantastic as it may seem today. So kind of to give you a little bit of perspective, I want to take you back. How many of you have developed stuff in 90s? Oh, nice. Okay, good. So then you might actually see some stuff, familiar stuff. But I mean, the thing is, things are, you cannot blame tools, and that's what I want to tell you. Because, well, 90s, first of all, as a time, was beautiful, beautiful waterfalls, right? We worked, there was no agile, there was no nothing. We were doing waterfalls, and there was, well, they kind of died off in that, around that time as well, but still, we're doing it quite a bit. We also did things like writing Java code in Notepads and Emacs and Vims and stuff like that, right? Kind of not really fun stuff anymore, right? Now we have IDs and everything that helps us, that makes it beautiful, that formats stuff for us, that they check things and everything, right? Versioning system was also kind of weird. I started working with something called Visual SourceSafe. That was pain. That was really pain. It's not the SourceSafe that you might know the way it is today. It is bad, just in case. There was another thing that was called CVS. That was, yeah, kind of, well, not really fun. Compiling and building. I was actually working on a project in mid-2000s where the system was kind of legacy system, and we're still doing that. We were building class paths in BAT files and just putting them together, and depending on what you choose, it would just like select different things, put different class paths, and build stuff and everything. That was I mean, good luck debugging that, really. If anything at all hits the fan, well, you know. And then you did all this stuff from command line, which you don't do anymore. You have Maven, you have everything. By the way, Maven and even Ant, they came in 2000. So it was before the time before all that, right? Issue tracking, oh, that's my favorite. What we did, I asked a colleague of mine, I was like, can you tell me like really horrible thing that you've done in 90s? He was like, yeah, I have one. And I was like, okay, cool, and what? And he was like, oh, you know what, bugs, we were kind of keeping track of them. We were keeping track of them in, well, hold on to your chair, in MS Access. And I was like, yeah, okay, well, that sucks, but what, so? And then he was like, no, wait, I'm not finished. The MS Access is a part of it, but the database file was in a shared network folder. Can you imagine what happens? Can you just like think of first 100 possible ways this thing can go bad? When there is one file with no like concurrency or anything supporting, and there's like 5 clients opening MS Access and just like dumping bugs into it? Well, yes. Okay. So now, all that is gone, right? Now we have fantastic bug tracking, we have fantastic code versioning systems, and all those things, and IDEs and everything. And you would think that all that is like just, and there's no waterfalls, right? Everything that would be just make things so much better. We would never do bad things. We were just like in heaven, and we would still do kind of weird things. So, this is kind of one of the explanations why. So you're in a legacy code base, you try to find out what's happening there, it haven't been maintained properly, you try to see if there are tests that can be run to actually to explain you how things are supposed to work, you can't find any. You try to look for specs. Specs are, in the best case, outdated and again on the same network shared folder thingy in a Word format, and you look at the timestamp, and it's been updated like 7 years ago, last time. And you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna brace myself, I'm gonna write a fix. And, well, everything, well, hell breaks loose, right? So, if we go back to this thing, right, and see how all those things can help us to get away from all that, the thing what happens is that you should look at your development environment, your code and everything. You should look at your tools that will help you to do that, and you should look at the documentation and everything. And some of you might have just noticed that this is kind of continuous something, right? This is kind of all those things that been advertised or being like promoted by those people interested in continuous insert buzzword, right? Integration, deployment, delivery, all those things. And usually it's also being like a sold to us as a like fantastic unicorn that will help things make so much better, so much more fantastic, and it's like amazing thing. It's a rocket ship that will take us to the stars, and it will make things all better, but you just have to do it all at once and at the same time, and nobody really does that most of the time, right? But the point is, you don't have to do all those things. You can do even small thing, one small tiny little change will already help you to get things much better. One step at a time, one little change, and it's also about convincing your managers, anyone that is like stopping you from doing that, might be stopping from doing that, to do these kind of things, right? So let's talk about those things. Development. Development is the first thing that I usually look at when I go to customers to look at the code quality. And I was like, do you have things like code standard? And people would get like kind of thrown off a little bit. They would be like, yeah, we do, yes. And I was like, oh, cool. Can I see it? And it's like, yeah, well, we'll find it. We'll get to you. Cool. Okay, fine. Then the next question comes, and you're like, do you follow it? Just the fact that you all are laughing, it's I think it's a good point of like, you see my point, right? Because then people would be like, yes. And then you're like, okay, fine, cool. I'll have a look. And what happens is that you look at the code and you ask them, it's like, okay, cool, can I have a look at the code? Just give me source code. I'll just open it in a random editor, random class. I'll just look at it. And I did, and I got scared. Because you just open the whole thing, and the whole thing is just like dancing all over the place, because there were like 5 people editing it throughout 10 years in 15 different editors with different code standards and everything. It's impossible to read. And how long does it take for a new person, a new developer, to get into this kind of projects? And all those things I'm going to tell you and show you, they will not only just make you help your project get better, but actually the whole point is to show you how you can choose your next project, actually, right? So code standard is one of those things, right? The kind of the obvious things, and then you look and the code is not readable, and you're like, okay, fine, can you just pick one code standard and just make it readable? Because there's like tons of uncommented, like commented in code. There is like things, and you're like, why is that? Like, there's like huge bulk of stuff that is commented out. I was like, yeah, but it's like, it's nice to have. And you're, okay, cool, but don't you store everything in a versioning system? Yeah, we do. And don't you have a backup of it? Yeah, we do, but why? I'll tell you a bit more scary stuff about that stuff in a bit. Okay, another thing, encoding. Encoding is a kind of seamlessly, a little bit seamlessly harmless thing. You were like, oh, well, you know, well, it doesn't matter. We have the main encoding for the project, and then we have, well, we build stuff and it works, and it's a cool, you know, thing. And then you're like, okay, fine, try to encode all those things and make sure that, like, or even, I don't know, even Riga, right? The I is different. And all those would end up being totally random characters. In the best case, there would be like a squares, and in any other case, there would be like something really weird. I've seen systems break because of encoding. And then I went to one of the projects, like really big, really critical project, and I like go there, I run a little command line script thingy to print out all the encodings, possible encodings for Java files. So it's like grep, you know, start.java, blah, blah, encoding, and then I get like 8 different encodings. I was like, yes, nice. What can possibly go wrong here? And then you look at things like MIME types, which is totally harmless thing to like on a first look. You're like, okay, fine, well, whatever, you know, I just looked, I printed the same thing for MIME types for same Java files, and I got like 5 or 6 different ones as well. And then you're looking at, okay, there are like Java files shown as HTML files, some as text files, as whatever files. There's like lots of weird stuff going on there. And you're looking at that and you're like, okay, this is harmless, this is not scary. Okay, but that tells me actually things. It tells me about that they don't probably have like standardized editors. They don't have standardized like code standard things. They don't follow those things, even if they do have. And it's like it's just a kind of pretty good thing that like as a smell, as a code smell, that it just gives you a kind of smell. Okay, there is something going bad here, so you really have to dig deeper. Another cool thing was that I asked about the code reviews, and sometimes I was like, okay, do you do code reviews? And people would be like, no, we're a small project, we're just 4 people, we know each other really well. We don't really need to do that. And I was like, yeah, how often does the system go down? Oh, well, we had a couple of bugs, you know, like, it wasn't our fault. And then you're like, yeah, but fine, but like code reviews is not about like just like knowing each other. You can be best friends, but it's also about like kind of rubber ducking. You actually explain things, or you can actually go through and try to understand things. And then people get like, oh, okay, maybe we should start doing that. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about development tools. And development tools is something that helps us to get through all this kind of things. So first of all, code versioning. Code versioning is, well, it's an obvious thing. Everybody's using that, right? But how do you use it? Do you just use it to store your files, and like, what kind of branching strategy do you use? And I worked in a project that was quite heavily influenced by like political choices, or like the laws that being passed and cancelled, and like, you know, all those kind of things. And what happens with politics is that things change. Things change while you've been in the middle of development. You're doing something, you're creating some kind of feature for that kind of stuff, and then the law changes because of reasons, and then you have to postpone that feature. But you have already committed like 2 or 3 things in your branch. So how do you do that, right? So do you do like feature branching? Do you do things like branching strategy and all those kind of things? This is an important thing to think about, and this is an important aspect of it. And well, the kind of taking backup of your code is the last thing that you should worry about, really. Yeah, the branching strategies we talked about already. Complexity, how complex is the code? How easily it is readable it is. It is an important thing here as well, because if your code is super complex with like 15 if sentences nested within each other, and I'm not really exaggerating, I've seen that. I took like screenshots of that and put that in the report, and I was like, this is not good. And they were like, yeah, maybe. And then the customer got a little bit scared. And you know, it's like 15 if sentences. What happens is that you're super happy with it because you finally made this super complicated logic work. Then 3 months pass, and you have to refactor that thing, or you have to add something. What happens? Just think about it. I mean, like, you've written 15 nested things, and you have to refactor it just like 3 months later. You don't remember absolutely anything about how this thing worked or how those things were put together, and then you have to do that, and you have to kind of redo all the logic and kind of implement the whole thing, which is super not pleasant, I would say, right? And then you do like testing, do you do testing? And like, again, one of the projects I was working on, and I was like, guys, do you do testing? And they were like, yeah. I was like, yeah, but I looked through code. I mean, all I could find, seriously, all I could find was just like old JUnit library from 2014. The year was 2017, so it was like 3 years old library jar file for JUnit, nothing else. No unit test, no nothing. It was, yeah, well, no, we don't do that. We do manual stuff. And I was like, okay, fine. How do you do manual stuff? Do you actually have like plan for that? Yeah, we have like plan and everything. But the thing is, if you don't automate that kind of things, you are bound to fail. It will just be a question of time when. Speaking of coverage and stuff, I just took I just wanted to see some numbers and to see some interesting things. So I just went to Sonar Cloud, which is Sonar Cube Cloud, where you can put your projects. You either have to have some kind of deal with them, or if it's open source, you can just put up your code there for free, which is cool, right? And then I looked for Java code, any Java projects, and that's what you get. And if you just kind of don't look at 0%, because this is obvious that they're not doing it for some kind of reasons. Probably they're using some other tools, they're using some other stuff, whatever. And look at all those things in the middle. There is quite a bit of projects that don't have that much test coverage. I don't say that you have to have like 110% of it, but still, there are quite a bit of projects with like half of the code that is being tested, half of the code base and stuff like that. And it's okay to have generated code in your project, but then you kind of usually add rules so it gets excluded and not shown like this. So I thought first it might be like generated and stuff, but it's not. Probably, most likely. And then I took like one of the projects that I recognize, and it's like PMD is one of the tools that I would suggest you in a second to use to check your quality of your projects. And then I realized that, well, they have like 62% coverage. They have quite a bit of bugs and stuff like that, and they have quite a bit of vulnerabilities. And, well, I mean, I don't say that most of them are critical or anything, but the point is that like even tools that are made to make things better, they not always do that. So this is kind of just to show you that, oh, well, this is obvious things you're telling me, and we obviously know that we're doing it. Well, see? Yeah, just some examples. So it's like there was some try except clauses and those kind of things, but it's like it doesn't really matter. So speaking of Sonar Cube, do you do static code analysis? Do you actually have a routine on running it weekly? Maybe, I don't know, daily. A daily might be a little bit overkill, but weekly might be really nice. Do you actually show it online? Because on some kind of screen in the office in where all the developers see it, because what happens is that it has this really nice arrows pointing up and down. Usually there would be like some kind of dashboard that will show you the difference since last time. And you get this kind of funny gamification thing that will that will help you to get your coverage up, to get your complexity down and everything, because people would be like super happy when it's green, and they will be a bit more disappointed when it gets red, and then they will try to do something to get it green again. And you know, it's really cool, nice little feature. And then you have some kind of plugins that will help you to do that, that integrates with tests and everything, and makes things really, really nice. You can have, like, for example, SonarQube plugins that will show you things live in your code, in your IDE, before sending it to the static analysis server thing. Another thing that I really want to talk, and this is kind of my little baby, is the third-party libraries. How many of you know all the third-party libraries that you have in your projects? Okay, seriously, is it light, or I really don't see any hands? Okay, I don't see any. Okay, cool. So the next question I usually ask, because usually that would be like a 1 or 2 hands, and I was like, how many of you know that those libraries are actually updated? So since there were no hands on the first one, so I probably no really point in asking the other one. But the thing is that, first of all, do you know if the library version you're using has any known issues or vulnerabilities and stuff like that? What kind of license does it use? It's also a kind of important thing, and I'm not talking about like paid, non-paid licenses. That's fine. That can be fixed with money. That's okay. There are things that are a little bit hard to fix, just like this, by taking out your credit card and just like fixing stuff. There are things like types of licenses, right? Is it Apache license? Is it like GPL license? Is it what is it? The thing is, if you're pulling a library that is, I don't know, GPL licensed, say, then it makes all your project GPL licensed, and then technically anybody can call you and say, hey, you know what? I want to see that code, because you are actually obliged to. You don't have to put it on GitHub and everything, but you are actually obliged to provide the code if anybody asks. This is kind of the way it works, right? And are you ready to do that? I worked on a really big project, like super critical for the country. And then you would be like, guys, you're using a GPL licensed code here. Are you actually aware of that? And they were like, oh, no, but well. And I was like, are you aware of that? You actually might be asked to share your code at any time. And then they got like, no, we can do that. And I was like, yeah, well, you know. Well, fortunately, they got saved by the way they were integrating with that service, so it was going through the web service, so it was cool. But the thing is, they were not actually necessarily aware of that. Yeah, it's a little blog post that I came over a couple of, I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, about like explaining why it's a good idea to audit licenses for your dependencies and stuff. So in case you're interested, you can have a look there. There is an URL. And also, the thing is, you actually update and maintain and make sure that your libraries are compatible with each other. They're like, there might be a library importing another library of version 1, and then another library importing the same library of version 2, and those two kind of conflict. Those kind of things happen, right? So you have to actually make sure that you know what's going on there. Around a year ago, Google published on security blog, their security blog, a post where they looked through lots of open source projects and tried to hack them and just see if there are some kind of things that can be exploited, vulnerabilities, those kind of things. And what they found is, in 5 months, they looked at the code, and there were like a bunch of stuff they found in different big projects, like well-known open source projects most of us are using. There were like lots of buffer overflows, there were some kind of memory issues, there were leaks, there were fun stuff. The point is, I mean, those things, no matter we want to believe it or not, we developers, we create bugs. I know it's a hard thing to admit, but we do sometimes. Very seldom, but we do. And the thing is that they get fixed, and they get discovered, and then they get fixed. But the thing is, if you don't update your libraries, those will still be leaking, overflowing, and smelling. Another thing that I usually look for is that how do you do all this kind of from the packaging, from this moment the developer commits their code till it ends up in production. Is it automated? Is it manual? When it's automated, how automated is it and on what levels, right? How do you deploy? Do you deploy it in the same way to all the other environments that you have? You probably would have some kind of development environment, some kind of test environment, some kind of staging environment, and, well, production, right? How do you do that? Do you do that in the same way, or you do it in different ways? Because if you do it in one way until you go to staging and to production, you do it differently, you will not see the bug that you will experience deploying to production until you get to production, and that kind of sucks. The tools. What kind of tools do you use? There are many good tools, there are many bad tools, but the point is, do you use actually tools? Do you actually have a strategy there? Another thing that is interesting to talk about is the architecture, and it's not really an attempt to show you huge monoliths going up in the skies and disappearing in the clouds, but it is actually just a picture, I promise. But the thing is that the whole idea of architecture of your system is actually should be able to support all that kind of things. You want to do continuous delivery? Cool. You want to do continuous deployment? Cool. Can you do all that because of your architecture? Does your actual architecture support being able to, I don't know, take up one service and take down one service, replace it with another one and do it seamlessly, or take up another one, new version, reroute traffic, and all those kind of things that you would normally expect to be able to do? So yeah, do you support actually continuous deploy? Does your system support a continuous deploy? Can you do something to make it support it? How does your application architecture look? And how does your integration architecture look? Okay, fine, your system might support all those things, but all those other systems that you're integrating with, how are they working together? Usually, it's the kind of things that people it's easy to forget. But it's very, very important stuff. Another thing that is getting more and more obvious is that you have code package structure within your code, because the thing is that you still have bigger systems. It's not all of them are like just super tiny little microservices. You still have a code, and you still want to create different packages within that big project so it can build faster, so it can actually, you can even go towards microservices by like pulling one project out. You want to do all those kind of things, and without proper code package structure, it will be really, really hard to do. And also, you have dependencies in between those packages, and you want to keep them away. I looked at the code, and I even used some tools to see the dependencies, and they were like all the packages were just pointing at each other, and that means that it's impossible to just like pull one package out, and the code will not, the rest of the system will not kind of bleed there. Let's talk about tools. The tools is like, first of things is the environment. It's the kind of the sandbox. It's where we play around. It's our development, our test, and also when we get to the production, right? Do you have the same routines for deploy? I talked about that already. Do you have the same kind of things? Are you able to actually figure out all those things early when deploying to development, not when deploying to production, right? Are those environments are similar? I know it's a kind of super unrealistic scenario to expect that your development environment would be as strong and super fast as a production environment, but can you actually try to strive to get those as equal as possible by, I don't know, using containers, using things, because what happens is that I worked in a project, really big project, and we been asked by a customer, they were like, okay, we have this bottleneck here. When you do this, and this, everything crashes and everything goes slow. You have to fix it because it's impossible to use. And we're like, okay, cool. We do the same thing. We reproduce that in our development environment. We fix it. We get like amazing performance increase. We're super happy. We take the code, we run to the customer, we're like, yes, we fixed it. And they're like, yes, you fixed it. And then they deploy it to production. Guess what? Nothing happens. Why? Well, because the thing is that we kind of encountered totally different bottleneck, because our environment was much slower, less CPUs, less memory, less blah, blah, blah. So the bottleneck was in the same place, but in like totally different kind of thing. So nothing happened. That's why. Are your environments are similar or not? Okay, can you rebuild your environments by just like a tiny little script? Can you just run it, and can you delete all the servers, you put in new servers, install the operating system, and just like run a script? Can you do that? In most of the cases, you will not be able to do that, and that kind of sucks. And then it's like, well, can you strive to do that? This is another thing. And you don't have to do all those things at the same time and all the way, but you can still create it little by little, create a little script that will do a little bit of deployment. Then you expand it, and then you expand it, and then you expand it, and boom, you have something that is running already on all the way, right? This is fun one. Do you actually run all your environments? And fine, they're virtual, cool, but are you actually running on the same physical hardware? Because what happens was, again, another story was that we were working on a project, and they asked us to do performance testing, and it was super important, and we were like, okay, cool. We're going to do into a production environment. We do that. We run very high loads. System is kind of coping. Everything is behaving as proper as expected and everything. And then we get a call from a customer, and they were like, you've taken down our production. What happened? And we're like, well, we don't have access to production, so no, but you're running performance testing and stuff. Are you running on the right? No, yeah, we're running in the right environment. Oh yeah, you do, okay. And well, but still the production is down. And then we're like, I don't know. And then they call us back 10 minutes later, and they explain stuff. Can you guess what happened? The thing was that the production and test environment were on the virtual machines and everything, but they were using the same hardware in the back. They were using same disks. So when you do that, when you put a high load on the test environment, and it puts high load on the disks, and the disks stop kind of responding or getting really slow, production using the same disks, guess what happens? Production goes down. A production environment goes down just because you're kind of running on the same hardware. Yeah, well, they were a little bit embarrassed when they called back. That was the thing. How do you do monitoring? Do you do monitoring only on your production or pre-production environments, or you do it all the way? It's exactly the same thing as with the deploy routines. Are you able to see changes and weird things happening by monitoring your systems from all the way from the beginning till the end? You should. That's another funny article that you might want to read later. This is basically how all these big companies ensure that things don't go bad. And because the things will go bad, and it's usually human error in most of the cases, but this is kind of also about designing system to be able to fail. So you design for failure, which is a good thing. And then you also design it in a way so it will not be that easy for human errors to occur. Also, I found a list of postmortems where there are like all the big known outages out there that have been looked through and kind of discussed, and there is the link there. And it's also quite interesting to see why all those things happen. In most of the cases, they're like human error, they're like things. That's why I'm saying those kind of things you can automate. You shouldn't automate absolutely everything on like totally crazy level just to automate all the things, but you should try to automate those things that kind of should be automated and should help you to escape all those human errors kind of things. Okay, one more thing. When talking about tools, first of all, ID, obvious, right? But the IDE will actually help you a lot. You're not developing anymore in Notepads and Emacs and everything. You actually have an IDE that helps you to do structure, to do refactoring, to do all those kind of things. And this is a nice thing. Use it properly, put in plugins that will help you, those kind of things. And might be a good idea to kind of agree on one or two IDEs that you want to do in a project. So you kind of can help each other. You can also have like reproduce bugs, and you can have, you know, all those kind of things. Yeah, integrating stuff with your IDE, with all those kind of things, with all the tools that you have. You should have like some kind of static code analysis thing running. You should be having it visible. You should be able to set up your IDE to talk to it and get all those errors locally. So when you open a class file, you can actually see those, and you might be, I don't know, you might actually get tempted to fix them. Just because you open a file, it's like, oh yeah, I can fix that, and then you just fixed one more little bug. Everybody's happy, right? Well, you can add checks at commits. You can do like things that you know that people are doing are easy to forget, or easy to something bad happen. You can just add those checks. Just don't forget about those. You can use build tools, and you can automate tests within those build tools on all levels. And I mean like unit tests, integration tests, all the way till like functional tests. There are good tools for that. There's a lot of tools for that. There are like Jenkins, TeamCities, whatever. I don't care what you use. The point is you should use something. Same thing goes with the build tools, like build stuff. Again, I don't get into this kind of the flame war of Maven versus Gradle versus something else. Everybody knows Maven is cool. No, it's just no. I'm not going there, seriously. But the thing is that just use something. And in case you're not sure what to use, take a picture of that. A little bit confusing, right? Just a little bit. Okay, last thing. One more thing I want to talk to you about is documentation. And documentation is a kind of important thing that usually gets overlooked, and it usually gets forgotten. In the best case, there would be on the legacy systems, there would be a bunch of Word files, as I told you, on the shared network drive, never updated. And that kind of sucks. So, first of all, what you can do is you can put it on some kind of collaboration platform thing, which is called in this fantastic world, but basically it could be like a Wiki or like Confluence or whatever. I don't care what you use, just the whole thing is just use it. I was in a project and I asked them, I was like, do you guys, where do you keep the documentation? Oh yeah, we have this place. Oh, cool. Do you have like collaboration tool? Do you have something? Yeah, we have, yes. I was like, cool. Which one it is? I mean, where is it? Can I have a look at it? Oh, well, yeah, well, you know what? We actually have two. And can you imagine what happens when you have two collaboration tools where you have like two different places to update documentation? Which one of them gets updated? Yeah, thank you. None of them. You have two. They're shiny and they're empty. And then I was like, okay, cool, but can't you just decide which one? No, well, that's difficult. That's like, we have to decide on that, and we have to do like 5 meetings and maybe a proof of concept, and then, you know. Issue tracking. So this is kind of my drawings again. So this is more a bug containment system to keep bugs like in one place, but normally you want to track them as well, right? And the same thing there. You should have one tool, and you should be one tool. I again asked the same customer, and I was like, okay, cool. How about issue tracking? They were like, yeah, we have that. Can you imagine what the answer was? The second, like the continuation of the answer. We have two. And I was like, wait, why? Well, you know, we're like, customer has one, and the consultants, they have another one. And hold on to your chairs. There is a guy or a girl, I don't know, a person, sitting there having as a job of manually syncing them. Think of it, like just like, congratulations, you're hired. Your job is to sync two bug tracking systems manually. And then I was like, no, don't do that, please. And then I come back to a colleague of mine, and then I kind of totally in shock, and I was like, oh my God. And she is looking at me and like, nothing happened, and she was like, you should have seen my project. We have 3. And well, I mean, 3 bug tracking systems. They have like halfway working sync, and the rest is just the magic of that lucky person to do the manual sync thing. Really nice, right? So, issue tracking, 1. It is not like the competition, the bigger, the many, the more you have, the better. It's not. No, don't go there. And so, just like at the end of it, is that there is a bunch of obvious things that we all mostly know that we should be doing or we should have done, but for some kind of reason we usually tend to omit some of them. And again, in my opinion, this is kind of the things that will help us to keep away of those bad pitfalls, bad projects, or bad things happening in the project. So what I would ask you to do now, or well later a little bit, is just like look at that picture and think of like, how can I improve a little bit, a little piece of one of those little bubbles to make my project a little bit better. And sometimes people ask me, they were like, can you help us to do that? Because I know that we should do that, and all the developers know that we should do that, but we try to do that, and we come to the customer and say, hey, look, we need to write tests. And then they were like, no, you have like a bunch of features that you have to implement. Why would you write tests that give me no features, and I need those features yesterday? And well, can't you just fix those instead? And then they're like super frustrated. They're like, what to do? What is that? And I was like, yeah, well, just start asking questions and start looking at things, and it's like start asking like, how often the system goes down and why? Could it that outage, that kind of bug, that whatever, could have been stopped by writing a test for that little thing? And then maybe you can just put that little test and just make it run, and when the customer sees that the downtime of the system in that little piece went from 90 times an hour, I don't know, just crazy number, to nothing, then they will start wondering, and then you do next and next and the next little thing, and then by doing one little piece at a time, you will actually convince them getting there, right? To help you with a little bit of those things, I wrote a couple of posts. This is one of them, which is like the command line tools, which I like command line, okay? So I wrote some kind of command line tools to help you with a little bit of those things that I've been talking about. You don't have to use them, but you know, it's nice kind of go to your project, run those things, see what you get out, and kind of get some kind of reflection out of it, right? Thoughts and stuff. And there is another one that I've been asked to many times, like, can you provide slides? Can you provide slides? And I was like, yeah, I can provide slides, but we're not going to get anything out of those. So I wrote it in a bit more text version of this talk that is out there if you want to have a look at that. And well, yes, I think what remains now is to, well, let you all fly away to your projects and pollinate them with the beautiful ideas of making the obvious things that are actually should be done, but sometimes omitted. And, well, we have a couple of minutes, so you can ask questions, comments, anything on Twitter, email, web, or anything like that. Or you can ask questions. I think we have like a little bit less than 2 minutes. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? I don't see, oh, there is a hand, I think, over there.
It's just thumbs up.
Oh, it's a thumbs up. Thank you very much. Thumbs up is good. And it is, speaking of thumbs up, there is an app with the voting and stuff. So remember to vote. Okay, then. Thank you very much.